The Las Vegas Raiders are making moves, and this latest report is something every fan needs to hear. The team is bringing in one of the most physical offensive linemen in the 2025 NFL Draft for a top 30 visit, Charles Grant, the standout tackle from William & Mary. Now, let's be clear, Grant is not just another draft prospect. This guy has the potential to be an absolute powerhouse in the NFL. Some experts even believe he could reach All-Pro status alongside players like Anthony Belton. The Raiders' interest in him shows they might be planning something big for their offensive line. But here's the big question. Do the Raiders actually need another offensive tackle? At first glance, it might not seem like a priority. However, DJ Glaze was not a John Spytek pick. Spytek may prefer to move Glaze inside and bring in his own guy to secure long-term protection for Gardner Minshew. With the Raiders expected to use a lot of five-man protection under Chip Kelly's system, getting the right tackle in place is crucial. Charles Grant looks like he could be that guy. His game film is impressive. He's quick, explosive, and comes off the line with serious power. Sure, he played at William & Mary, but great movement translates at any level. His ability to read angles, get into position, and make the right blocks is what separates him from the rest. Of course, the transition to the NFL will come with challenges. He'll need to adjust to the speed and physicality of the pro game, but there's no doubt he has the potential to dominate. Before we dive deeper into what this means for the Raiders, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to turn on notifications. That way, you'll never miss the latest Raiders news. Now, let's get back to it. Grant isn't just a big, strong lineman. He's also an incredible athlete. That's what makes him so appealing to teams. His footwork, balance, and ability to stay in control, even against aggressive defenders, are skills that could make him a major asset for the Raiders. The Raiders have a big decision to make when it comes to their offensive line, and Charles Grant could be a key piece to that puzzle. Bringing him in could help solidify their front, but the big question remains. Where does he fit in the draft? Is Grant a first-round pick? That's up for debate. Could the Raiders take him at number 6 overall? Some might say that's a stretch, but if the team believes he's worth that pick, it wouldn't be a shock. The problem is, we didn't get to see him at the Senior Bowl. He was actually the first player invited, but an injury kept him from participating. That same injury also sidelined him for most of the NFL Combine, though he did manage to put up numbers in the bench press. Given that he hadn't been able to train for months, it makes his performance even more interesting. Now, let's talk about measurements. Some analysts believe Grant might be better suited at guard rather than tackle, and that's not an outrageous take. If he wants to be an all-pro player, shifting inside could be the best move. However, he's still fully capable of playing offensive tackle at the pro level. At the Senior Bowl, he was officially measured at 6 feet 4 inches and 300 pounds, with an impressive 35-inch arm length. And here's why that matters. Arm length is a huge deal for linemen. Some guys with shorter arms struggle against pass rushers, but at 35 inches, Grant has the reach to compete at the highest level. In recent years, the NFL has started favoring shorter, more explosive offensive linemen over pure height, and Grant fits that trend. He's quick, strong, and has the tools to be a major asset. The Raiders seem interested, but will they take the leap? That's the big question. If DJ Glaze isn't locked in as the Raiders' right tackle, the team might consider moving him inside to right or left guard. That would open the door for someone like Charles Grant to step in. But is he ready to start on day one? And, more importantly, where should the Raiders draft him? Taking him at number 6 overall might be a bit high, but waiting until the second round could be risky. He might not be available by then. Most projections have him going between picks 20 and 35, so if the Raiders want him, they'd need to make a move at the right time. Now, here's where things get interesting. The Raiders will be running a lot more outside zone and wide zone under Chip Kelly. That means the offensive lineman will need to move well in space. Grant fits that style, making him a strong option if the Raiders decide to prioritize mobility in their line. At the same time, DJ Glaze isn't the fastest tackle out there, so shifting him inside could make sense. It's clear that John Spytek has a vision for this offensive line. Last season, the Raiders made a great move by bringing in Paris Johnson, and he's already looking like a future star at center. In fact, Johnson could end up being one of the best centers of the decade. Then there's Kolton Miller, who has solidified himself as the franchise left tackle. After a slow start last season, Miller locked in and barely allowed any sacks the rest of the way. At 28, he's still in his prime and has several strong years left. If the Raiders add another talented lineman, whether it's Charles Grant or someone like Anthony Belton, they could be building an offensive front that dominates for years to come. Bringing in a dominant offensive lineman like Charles Grant could completely change the Raiders' O-line. If they land a true difference maker, whether it's Grant, Anthony Belton, or Javon Foster, the line instantly improves. But if they don't make a move, they could be stuck with an average unit, and that's a problem for a team that needs to protect its quarterback and establish a strong run game. Speaking of quarterbacks, the Raiders made a big move by bringing in Geno Smith. With teams around the league locking in their QBs, Las Vegas decided to go with experience. Geno isn't just a stopgap. He's a proven starter who can lead this offense. While other teams scrambled to find their guy, the Raiders acted decisively, making sure they had stability at the most important position. Now, the real challenge is making sure Geno has the protection he needs. That's why decisions on the offensive line are so crucial. If the Raiders add another talented lineman, this offense could take a huge step forward. The Raiders are in a unique spot heading into the draft. Holding the 6th overall pick, they have a big decision to make. Do they go all in on strengthening the offensive line, or do they take a different route? Some experts believe they could leave the draft without landing a true game-changer, but that depends on how the board falls. One thing is clear: Las Vegas needs impact players. Whether it's a dominant lineman like Charles Grant or another top prospect, they can't afford to miss. The Raiders' front office must be sharp in their evaluations because a single bad decision could set them back. If they make the right call, though, this team could take a major leap forward. With other teams focused on their own roster struggles, the Raiders have an opportunity to build something special. Now, it's all about making the right moves. The Raiders are walking a fine line with the 6th overall pick. The top 5 players in this draft seem like sure bets, dominant talents who could transform a team. But where does that leave Las Vegas? If those 5 are off the board, the Raiders might have to make a tough call. Should they gamble on a player who isn't a guaranteed superstar? Should they trade down and collect more assets? The front office will need to be sharp because this decision could shape the franchise for years. They can't afford another first-round mistake like in the past. There's also the question of positional value. Should they reach for a right tackle? Should they move a guy like Charles Grant to guard? Or is there another impact player they could target? These are the big decisions that will define the Raiders' draft strategy. Whatever happens, the stakes are high. This team has talent, but they need to make smart moves to compete at the highest level. The right pick could be the difference between a playoff push and another frustrating season.